Hello, I'm Tony. Join me as I run away to the circus in The Amazing American Circus, a deck building adventure game free from Prime Gaming until the end of December 2022. You've inherited a failing circus from your father, who has sadly just passed away, and you end up taking your uncle with you as you travel across America, looking to impress every city until you are famous enough to enter a big circus tournament which will net you a cool 100 grand. Given this is in the days of the Wild West, not sure exactly when, this is a huge amount of money. So, how exactly do you go about getting rich? Well, you need to manage your circus, of course, travelling from city to city, putting on shows. And you do that via what I call expanded deck building game. Think of a simplified Hearthstone dropped into a pretty simple resource management game, and you're getting close. The graphics have an old Western style aesthetic, which I quite like. It's all cut out shapes, all 2D, so no fancy 3D going on, but it's really not necessary. The music is very appropriate. Some of the songs sound like they're straight out of a Western movie. And there's some circus style music that really sets the mood nicely during battles. I honestly got a little bit lost with this game initially. I didn't quite know what was happening in the card battles, and I never had enough money. And that's more my fault for rushing through the tutorial, because there's a lot of it, and you kind of get bombarded with it, and I would say don't skip it. I'm going to go for a relatively quick description here, don't check how long this video is, to give you all an idea of how the game plays, but as I say, I do recommend going through it yourself. Let's talk about the battles first. You can have a troupe of up to 6 characters by default, and you use 3, each of which can have 5 cards. Each card has a vitality cost to play them, and you have a certain amount of vitality each turn. It doesn't generally go up like Hearthstone would. Each of your characters has a health bar, which they call focus, and losing all your focus causes your character to sacrifice one of their 5 cards to regain it. If you lose all your cards, that character's out. Lose all your characters and boo! You suck! You're not getting paid. Your job in the show is to impress the crowd that you play to, and you do that by using the cards that have the impress ability on them. This does damage to them. At the same time, the crowd will be sneering at you, which is basically them attacking you, and it drains your health or focus. To counter this, some cards have the ignore property on them, which effectively adds defense that can absorb some of that sneering damage. Each character in the crowd has a little picture underneath their portrait that indicates their next action. If one of your characters has a picture with a number next to it, that's who they're going to attack and how much damage they'll be doing. They might be shielding themselves or their crowd mates, or they might have a special ability like stopping you use ignore cards. They've also got their own interesting quirks, like some crowd members are going to have their health reduced multiple times before they're happy. Some will not be happy unless their boss is happy. Your characters can have also multiple things. They can reduce the damage that a crowd member is going to do, use the stash ability to build up damage that can be unloaded in one big hit. You also have a finale performer, which allows you to do a high damaging ability that has a meter that gets built up as your performers play cards. Your cards generally have a finale number on them, which indicates whether it's going to increase the gauge or decrease it. Once the gauge is full, you're free to use the finale and do whatever damage or ability it has. Finale performers are separate to your normal performers. They're not part of the 6 performers that you can have in your troupe or the 3 that you can bring. Also separate is a misfit class performer. They get added to another slot when you create your show and have an ability that happens at the start of each act. You can have multiple crowds in a battle, which are divided into acts. but your performers carry on as they were. Finale performers and misfit performers can't be recruited, or at least I can't see them via the normal recruitment wagon method. I haven't found another finale performer, but I did find another misfit performer after completing a show in a particular city. Don't know if this is random chance or whether it was a sort of pre-written story beat. There's obviously nuances to the battles that would be best placed in a guide, which I am not up to making at all. I do feel like I'm getting to grips with the fights and have been enjoying them, but they're only part of the game. There is another side. As your performers succeed in shows, they level up, albeit quite slowly. And when they reach a new level, you have the option to either grab new cards or upgrade existing ones as part of a leveling experience. You do this at one of the many structures in your circus camp that you see when you're in the city. The training wagon is where you upgrade your performers, and it's not that cheap. To give you a reference point, a good show at the beginning of the game pays like $700, and to train one level for one performer costs $200. So if your 3 performers all level up after a show, your profits from the show are wiped out, just leveling them up. This is an issue because there's more things you need to spend your money on after a show. It's hard for me to say what the priority really is, because I've only played 6 or 7 hours of the game, and I don't feel like I'm that far in. For me, the Quirk system was my priority. Quirks are what they seem to be, idiosyncrasies of your performers that can have a positive or negative effect when in a battle, show. If a performer has a really helpful quirk, this is great, but it does cost you $300 to copy, a couple of hundred to lock it in, or $100 to delete. You can reduce these prices, but they're still quite high. Now I'm sure you're thinking, well, as a one-off that's fine, right? It's not that much money, but it's not a one-off. Quirks can be picked up or changed after a show if they've not been locked. So you may need to be deleting or trying to lock these quirks regularly. And you can only lock 1 quirk by default, 2 if you upgrade. So even in the best scenario, you might still be dealing with 3 quirks that change and can be negative. The quirks can have a pretty significant effect on the battle, so I found it important to make sure that there weren't these really bad negative quirks. In a similar way to the quirks, you can also pick up hoaxes or gifts after a show, which are basically cards that get added into a deck that have positive or negative effects. Getting rid of a negative one costs you another couple of $100. These aren't permanent, they're likely only going to stay for a number of shows, but again, they can have a really significant effect on your performers. Still more money goes to the cooking wagon where you cook. Now, you do need to cook because people need to eat when they travel, obviously. There's more to it than that though. As you travel, you can see that there's 3 properties of the circus troupe: satisfaction, health and nutrition. You have a bunch of recipes and you can upgrade to get more, and each of them gives varying amounts of these 3 attributes. It's important because dropping them too low causes negative effects on the next show, while getting them up high has positive effects. So it's worth having a look to see what you actually need to improve for the next show. Of course you have to pay for ingredients. They're cheaper than everything else, but it is still a drain on your resources. Even more so because I found that the further you travel, so the number of cities that you might jump, the more meals that you need, but whilst that increases the cost, it also gives you the option of balancing out the meals that you put in to get an overall positive net effect on everything. Last of the money drains, and a bit more of a long-term thing, is the Ringmaster's wagon, where you can upgrade all of your wagons to provide a host of benefits, from cheaper prices to better outcomes after a show. All of the wagons can be improved, and you do really need to think about the order you're going to do them in. because it's quite expensive and money is obviously limited. That's roughly the things that are in the game. Now, I definitely struggled at the beginning when I played, mostly because I was just not making enough money to improve my circus. Everything I earned from the shows went on basic maintenance that I've discussed already, so I wasn't really getting anywhere. So I decided to start my game over again. This time I went in a different direction and stumbled into a story which gave me a mission. It's definitely the best way to play the game, since doing the mission I earned a good amount of cash and also got to see a chicken open a safe, which was its own special thing. I'm now finding a lot of these stories dotted about, and it really adds to the game. Not just because it gives you money which you feel like you're getting somewhere, but because some of them are pretty fun. There are a few dialogue options, not many, but you can slightly dictate what happens. This game is proven to be really fun. I'm not a big deck building fan. I have a basic knowledge of the mechanics, but I'm enjoying the implementation here, along with the management and story elements, because it's a really well-rounded experience. The only thing that sort of crosses my mind is that I don't know why you'd ever swap your performers out once you've started using them and have a team that works together. The leveling process is pretty slow, but the rewards for getting better cards or upgrading the ones you already have is pretty significant. And because the Quirk system needs a lot of investment, I wouldn't want to be swapping them out. You have a recruitment wagon, and it kind of encourages you to add new people. And the missions in themselves, you need to add more people. But I'm pretty much just going to use this as a way of getting quirks that I want on my proper cast of performers. Not a big deal, just something that came to mind. This is a definite recommend from me. If you've not played deck building games before, I think this is a good way to check them out. Doesn't have too many cards to deal with, and I don't think the fights are going to get too convoluted. And on top of that, there's more to the game to keep you involved. Purist deck builders may find the combat a little bit too basic, but I'd still recommend trying this out, because the management aspects add enough to the game that it may make up for it. If nothing else, go claim it before it runs out. You can try it later when you've got nothing else to play. Right, I've decided that I can't live in the circus because I have no discernible talent, so I'm off. Thanks for watching, and I'll talk to you soon. Goodbye.